Hello everyone and welcome to Top Tips for Archaeology Graduates. Today I'm really pleased to have invited Dan along to talk to us, who is currently studying for a PGCE. Hello Dan, how are you today?
Yeah, good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming along. I want to start by asking about what is it like to be studying to become a teacher, and what are the kind of things that you're doing in your course?
It is hard work, I think. That's sort of a given. But something that was said to me before I started mine was that there is sort of a myth to an extent that if you do a PGCE, you must be working until 9-10 o'clock every night and you get no time for anything else. And it's super, super intense. And the advice I was given was get ahead of what you need to do things ahead of time as sort of soon as you can, and then it's fine, which is so far, fingers crossed, been my experience. And it's also an awful lot of fun. Working with kids, working with young people in schools is such a privilege. I'm working in primary as well, which is why I chose to go into primary. Was you're not just teaching one subject, you're teaching everything, you're teaching the whole thing. You need to be this sort of Renaissance teacher almost. You need to be able to teach math, you need to be able to teach English, you need to be able to teach science, history, PE, and that for me is what's really exciting about it, and what makes it a challenge, but what makes it really rewarding as well.
So what has it been like? What are some of the things that you've enjoyed about studying your PGCE? Is it both a mixture of being in classroom and sort of being in classes yourself? What's it like?
Yeah, definitely the talk component of the course. There are various routes into teaching. I can only speak as the PGCE. Lots of people do sort of schools direct, where they're less associated with the university and more of their theoretical training is done in school. But I've gone with the university route, and personally I found at the University of Manchester that the talk component is really strong. It's really beneficial. It's not just theory for the sake of theory. It's really applicable, and you can see when you go into school, oh yeah, I'm using this, or I'm using that. In say maths, it will be okay. This is what a starter should look like. Or if you're questioning, and you're trying to develop reasoning, this is the sort of things you would say. So that's been really sort of beneficial, but nothing replaces being in school. That is 100% the highlight. I think that's everyone's highlight. Nobody ultimately does a PGCE because they think, yes, I want to do educational theory. They do it because they want to be in a classroom with 30 kids and have a great time.
So if that's one of the best parts of doing a PGCE, what are some of the challenges that you faced?
I think balancing that academic side and the talk component and the assignments and all the paperwork you have to do. We're quite lucky with University of Manchester. It's not, we have to do a portfolio, which gets sent off when we get qualified teacher status. That's our evidence that we've reached the teacher standards. Again, it's one of those things, if you stay on top of it, try and do it regularly, it's not too bad, but it always feels like it's sort of pulling you away from what you really want to do, which is plan interesting lessons and teach. So that's sort of mentally quite difficult when you have to say, right, unfortunately I can't plan this really exciting science lesson I wanted to do because I have to go and do my assignment or what have you. So that's part of it. I think part of it that's been challenging as well is it's not your class, and it won't be your class until you get a job and you're doing the real thing. So as a trainee, you sort of have to tread the line between wanting to experiment and wanting to try new things and find your feet as a teacher, but you're also very aware that you are in someone else's class and you're in their system and their world. I've had really amazing mentors who've been really supportive, really wanted me to do to find my feet and experiment, but you are still aware that it's their class, really, not your class.
So what led you up to choosing to apply to do this course? How did you go from being an archaeology undergraduate to signing up to do a PGCE in primary education?
By accident, in a way. It was never something that I thought. I was dead set that I was going into academia, I was going to go and do a PhD. I was going to be a researcher. That was it. That was my life path, sort of very planned out. And then I did my MA in Funerary Archaeology and loved it. One of the best years of my life. But I was knackered. I was absolutely exhausted by the end of it. and I wanted to go and have a real job and real experience. And during my MA year, I'd worked at Boothby School, part-time school in York, boarding school, and had loved that experience, loved being around young people in quite a pastoral role. So then when I wanted to get a real job, one of the areas I could get into was being a teaching assistant. I ended up working for an agency, which is fine in the short term. It means you can be quite mobile. You sort of work when you want to work. You can work short term, you can work longer term. And so I've done that for a couple of years, and over time just sort of thought, I love being in schools, I love being a TA, but I wanted more. I thought, I don't want to be a TA forever, I want to develop. And it got to the point where I started thinking, I don't want to be the one at the back of the class anymore. And I sort of started having this feeling, actually, no, I think I could be the one at the front. I think I could be controlling this class and having more of an impact, helping more than just one child at a time, sat one-to-one. So yeah, and that was a conclusion that seemingly all of my family and friends knew that I was already going to come to, and it just took a little while for me to work that out. And then I sort of bit the bullet and went for it, and loved it.
What was the application like? What were the kind of things that they were asking for or looking for on the application to do a PGCE that you think what criteria did you fill when they were looking for you?
I think experience is really good. I'd say I know plenty of people on the course who, I'm very fortunate in that I've worked as a TA for a couple of years, and I've people on my course who have taught abroad, and that's sort of one sort of extreme of how much experience you can have. The more you have, the better, I think, but it's not a prerequisite. If all if you helped out at a scout club for a year or so, that's also great. I think anything to be around young people in any capacity is great, and what they're looking for. And from what I recall of the application, it's not less about what you've done, but it's what you want to do. It's about your potential. You're very much not expected to apply as a finished article. We're not expected to finish our PGCE as finished cookie cutter teachers at all. It's very much the start of a very long process to become the teacher that you want to be. So get as much experience as you can, and talk about why you want to do it, why you want to improve. I think you can't go far wrong.
I've spoken to a lot of people in these videos, and that's something that comes back to in every profession almost, this sense of reflective development as you go through your profession. There's at no point you are the finished article. It's something you're going to keep learning as you go through time. That's a really nice point to hear you make. So can I ask, how did your archaeological degree help you, I guess, in terms of transferable skills? Do you think doing an archaeology degree helps you in becoming a primary school teacher?
Yeah, I think surprising. So some people sort of find that quite surprising, but particularly, I can only talk as to primary, but particularly for primary, because for me, the reason that I did archaeology and ended up loving archaeology was because it had a bit of everything. It's like sort of the ultimate, for me, overarching science, humanities, everything is involved. And that's what I loved about my course, was how you'd, in one essay or one assignment on one sort of part of the course, you'll be including psychology and biology, and it's look, I need this bit to understand this bit of physics, or I need to understand this bit of medicine to understand the archaeological evidence. And I think for primary in particular, not obviously not on that scale, but it does mean you have a nice understanding of how knowledge isn't siloed, and how a lot of what primary schools are trying to do at the minute to try and cram in as much as they can is cross-curricular. And so I think, having had that archaeology background of sort of cherry picking what you need and understanding of how knowledge interlinks, that means when you come to, say, combine a science and a history session, you can see those links a bit more. I think it probably just gives you a really nice broad background knowledge. So when kids are asking questions, you at least can offer them something, rather than just going, I have no idea what that is. That helps. Which you could also say that's fine. So yeah, that broad knowledge as well. I mean, everyone will say this for every degree, but what I thought the course at York did really well was the teamwork sort of element. when you're working with your fellow students on some sort of project, or whether, say, it's in the bone labs together or something like that. Because even though as a teacher you are on your own at the front, you're always part of a team, and you're always going to other people and saying, can you help me with this? What do you know about this? Is this lesson good or not? So yeah, that was a nice added skill, certainly.
That's great, thank you. So what kind of advice would you give then to any of our graduates or students at the moment who are thinking about moving from doing an archaeology degree into doing teaching? What are some of the things that they should be thinking about?
I think if as much as you can gain experience working with young people, doesn't matter where it is, in what form it is, what you're doing, doesn't necessarily have to be in a school at all. To an extent, it's good to have experience not in a school, because you see things from a slightly different perspective. So yeah, anything at all, volunteering in any capacity. Obviously paid work's great if you can get it, but it doesn't have to be that. Really anything that means you've been around young people before, because there are a lot of people who think they want to be teachers and actually just don't like young people. So sort of check that isn't you, and if that is you, that's fine, that's absolutely fine, but better to do that in advance through volunteering with Scout Group than ending up paying for a PGCE and then finding out. So yeah, as much experience as you can get. And I think something that I tried to do ahead of my PGCE was be reflective and observant, and try and take the opportunity while you're not having to do anything really, if say you are one-to-oneing or you're at a Scout Group, to soak up as much as you can. Have a look at what the leader's doing and think, was that effective? Or the way they dealt with that, is that what I do? Did that work? Or okay, that child didn't get that, why? And they're really good skills to start thinking of before you start, if you can get that experience. So yeah, be observant and be thoughtful.
That's a really lovely comment. I'm now a bit scared that you were considering and observing my teaching as we were going through your masters.
I thought it was excellent. Not that that's any sort of standard that has to be met, is what I think of it.
That's nice of you to say. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dan. I'm really looking forward to you producing the next generation of archaeology undergraduates by making all your classes about archaeology and as you go through. Very best of luck with the rest of your PGCE, and maybe we'll check in with you in a bit to find out about how you're getting on once you're on the job. Thank you very much to Dan for joining us. Thank you very much to you for joining us as well. Join us next time for top tips for archaeology graduates. Thank you.